Welcome to the Human Advantage podcast, where culture is created, not claimed. We've been talking about culture for years, but most companies still reduce people to check boxes that are supposed to define an entire human being. We hire for familiarity, we reward sameness, and then wonder why teams struggle. The problem isn't talent, it's the system. And this podcast is about changing that. Diversity beyond checkboxes, culture add over culture fit, and how people think is the real differentiator. Because people aren't categories, they're the advantage.
So today we are joined by my man Jason Miller, the people systems guru, honestly. Head of people intelligence and AI at Natera, co-founder of PromptMates, and really, man, the reason we wanted to have you on here is because I think you're one of the few people I've met who is super systems focused, but doesn't lose touch of the human side of things. And I think that's so important as we transition into AI and we transition into kind of this automated recruiting workflow that we've developed. I love your perspective on things, man. I wanted more people to hear it. So welcome aboard, man, and thanks for taking time to do this.
Yeah, I'm really genuinely happy to be here with you guys, man. I know we get lucky that we get to chat work-wise kind of, a couple times a month, but I'm excited to be doing this with you guys today.
Awesome, man. Happy for you. Yeah. Let's get into it, dude. So you, as I kind of touched on, your career's been kind of sitting in the intersection of talent, technology, innovation. You're one of the few technical recruiter folks that I could say is truly technical. As far as really understanding AI, understanding the systems behind it. But I'm curious, like, what originally pulled you into not just the recruiting, man, but I think your niche that's really unique around than everybody else we talked to is really developing systems around people. So what kind of drove you to that direction?
I wanted to be a sports agent. Like that was my whole life, dude. Like I'm old enough to where like Jerry Maguire totally spoke to me. And I went to school to get a pre-law degree so I could be a sports agent because that's how you do it. And a buddy of mine kind of freaked me out a little bit and was like, "You don't have an internship, you're not going to get into a good law school." And this was 1999, so this is like when everybody was freaked out that like airplanes were going to fly out of the sky because Y2K bug and stuff like that.
Yep, I remember it. Yep,
I remember going to the grocery store.
Like, what's going to happen when the clock strikes midnight? And so I got an internship at a recruiting firm. And then quickly kind of came to find out that I became a sports agent for Computer Geeks, and it just sort of stuck with me. So I got real lucky to be kind of the dumbest guy in the room for 20 years with a lot of really, really, really smart technical folks. And some of it rubbed off on me, and I got to take companies public and build Roblox and found my own AI company. And now I'm in a situation to where I get to help the #1 cancer fighting tech company in the world fight cancer. So I've been able to find kind of my little niche, if you will, as to how to continue to be the dumbest guy in the room around smart people, and then translate that to the rest of us.
Love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So like, okay, that makes a lot of sense on like transition into recruiting. I mean, let's be honest. I've yet to meet somebody who grew up being like, I want to be a recruiter. I mean, I love the profession. And I think it's amazing, but like, why are you still in it? Like, why do you enjoy it still?
Yeah, it is kind of the profession of misfit toys, right? I mean, it's one of those like traditional jobs where it's like relatively low barrier to entry, but those that do it well, like they truly become like a master of their class, I think, really are exceptional. It's also a really cool job in the idea that like there's very few jobs that I would argue that like we get to have human impact and business impact. I mean, there's great human impact jobs out there, but like I'm never gonna sell you your first house. I'm never gonna like, be ordained and marry you or like all these other kind of inherent, I'm never gonna deliver your child. I'm never gonna do these like inherently positive life things. But I can absolutely help you get a job that will like pay that mortgage or like that child, or and these sorts of things. And then on the flip side, like the business aspect, you know, as great as putting somebody in a job that is right for them is for them, getting the right person for a company can change the trajectory of that company. So it's like
Yeah.
I stick with it because I kind of get the best of both worlds. And you know, when you look at recruiting as a craft and as that kind of profession, I don't want to do anything else.
Yeah, I love that, man. You hit on such an important point there because I think sometimes us as recruiters lose sight of or forget the fact that like we impact so many people's livelihoods on a day-to-day basis, right? Whether that's on the business side or the candidate side, like we're that catalyst to impacting somebody's next 10 years or 20 years or whatever, but like that shift in somebody's livelihood. And I think, you know, sometimes recruiters get a bad rap, but I think the good ones, like you truly do get to make an impact on people's livelihoods. I think it's such an important piece to touch on there.
No, right. Absolutely. And I mean, on the flip side too, right? Like if we hire somebody that determines how to identify early traits of cancer and save someone's life, like, did I save that person's life? No, but did I help build the team that saved the life? And you can do that with anything, man. I mean,
For sure.
from everything down to designing the system that helps me get an Uber so I can get home safe. I mean, like, you know, I mean, like, there's goodness in a whole host of different things we do.
Yeah, love that, dude. So I think we originally connected over this, but you know us by now. We've spent a lot of time chatting together. You know, we talk a lot about neurodiversity and kind of different ways of thinking on this show. So is there, because I know you look at the human aspect of things, right? You're not just the checkbox, you know, control F type of recruiter or talent system builder. So is there a connection that shaped how you approach this space and the work you do in looking at the kind of either neurodiversity side or just different ways of thinking and processing it in how that impacts the business impact?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit on it a little bit with like the intro to this whole chat was it's like you get companies that I believe genuinely want to look at things in a more diverse way. Like I assume
Hmm.
good in people, but then we default to these kind of like traditional ways of hiring, right? And then just sort of like, you know, who had the best behavioral interviewing question, or you know, who was the most articulate, or you know, these sorts of things. And you know, me personally, um, I'm a parent of neurodivergent children.
Yeah.
I believe a number of the folks that I have worked with like have been, you know, neurodivergent. Um, I definitely see traits of it in myself as far as, you know, like hyperfixation on certain things and these sorts of stuff. And I think done right, each one of those things can be an advantage. I think I've mentioned you
Sure.
guys too. Like, you know, I actually run an organization called Dadvocates, which
Yep.
is, you know, it's for fathers and male caregivers of neurodivergent or special education teens and kids and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
uh, definitely really important to me. And that's why, you know, the work that you guys are doing is the reason I'm on this call today.
I love that, man. I
Yeah.
love that you touched on the impact and the strength behind that, right? Because I think there's still so many misconceptions around neurodiversity. There's so many different labels and you know conceived notions around it. But I truly believe in the right environment, there's so much strength to looking at things differently. I think you know we joke all the time. Silicon Valley is born out of neurodivergence, right? Like if you look at it, like that's where real innovation happens. And I think changing that discussion to not just the old medical model where this is something to be fixed, but like, hey, if we put different thinkers in environments where they can utilize that unique way of thinking, like that's how innovation happens. And I think the advocacy work you're doing on that side is so important.
I mean, at the end of the day, man, like, what is it? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Gladwell comes out with Outliers. And
Yep,
he does this whole chapter on how like being dyslexic will make you a better CEO because it's been harder for you. And it's like,
100%.
you know, you jump
Yep.
forward today, right? And it's like, um, I, thankfully he's taken that back, and you know, and he's kind of talked about it differently. But you don't choose to have your pocket filled with 40,000 songs. like 20 years ago if you don't think differently. I mean, hell,
Yeah.
Apple's whole
Yeah.
thing is think different, right? I mean, so,
Yeah. Yep.
so at least back then. So yeah, no, I think that you're starting to see it too. I would argue too, like I've heard some really neat stories. I think we've talked to you guys about this, where like folks that are, you know, maybe nonverbal or something like that, or folks that are like vision impaired. So not even just kind of neurodivergent, just kind of like differently abled. The way that they would design a UI or a UX if something is much different, right? And you've
Yeah.
heard the, you know, the whole, the reason that I'm able to take, you know, years ago when I was pushing a stroller and get, you know, my kids up on a curb was because there was ADA accessible access
Yeah.
on a sidewalk,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Shortcuts. Yep.
there's
Or
so
bikes, rollerblades, skateboards. Everybody uses those things, not realizing it was designed out of ADA, right? Closed caption on the TV. My wife and I have it on the TV every night. Like we can hear just fine, but I don't want the TV blasted in my room at night. You know, like I think universal design, the importance of it is becoming so much more relevant because yes, it's designed out of accessible features, but it benefits the majority, right? And I think that's if you
much
look
so.
at building systems that way, that's how you design the best systems
No, absolutely, man.
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. Well, I mean, since we're chatting about systems, you know, I gotta ask, and this is maybe a slight off tangent, but what is the biggest mistake do you think there is in hiring process, especially like new systems and standards, especially with AI?
Sure.
Like I hear a lot of good stories. I hear more bad stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like nobody chooses to go into this profession. Everybody thinks they can do it better than us too, right? So it's like, so what do we get, man? I mean, like we were sold this like bill of goods for a real long time that an engineer is going to make us a tool to make us more efficient, or an engineer is going to make us a tool to you know, improve recruiting and improve hiring in some way, shape, or form. So where we sit now is just like this infinite level of like almost almost AI slop level TA tools now, talent acquisition
Yeah.
tools, where and if you think about what a lot of them solve for, they don't even necessarily solve for what we in the recruiting space would consider to be like our core problems. It's like
Mhm.
it's an engineering hiring manager, and you know, bless their soul, or it's like a kid who dropped out of like USC, you know, and they solve for like, I wasn't able to get an internship fast enough, or I'm tired of like having to interview too many people, or there's this infinite amount of candidates out there, and therefore I'm going to make a scraping tool and give to the recruiter so they can find me more better people. When in actuality, um, the best of those things out there right now in the world of AI are when we're solving our own problems. It's when we're solving our own, what I call paper cuts. It's the,
Yeah.
you know, what are the 5, 10, 15-minute things that I got to do 4 or 5 times a day that if I can alleviate those, it frees me up to be what I, as a human being, am especially good at. And I'll take it a step further. A lot of people will talk about like, oh, well, then you get to do what you want. You get to talk to more candidates, or you get to spend more time with the hiring manager. And the fact of the matter is, the stuff that we're good at is dealing with the bad stuff. It's when somebody no shows for an interview, or you know, somebody gets a last minute offer from another company that you didn't know about. How do you spin that?
Yeah.
Or a sales leader misses his nut and turns around and tries to blame recruiting for not having enough people, you know,
Yep.
to be able to get there. It's like that's the human element of what we do that goes unseen. And the more that we can build tools and systems to allow us to be more of that version of ourselves, I think the better off everybody is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So true.
I love that you touch on, you know, the AI slop and how many systems there are, because I think I'm sure all of our feeds are similar, but I look at my feed and everybody's pitching a new AI tool in recruiting and it's the best thing ever, and every promise, you know, promises the moon, and you know, I saw one every day. Like we're on podcasts. It's funny because when I'm listening to podcasts, there's an ad from one of the large, you know, job boards. It's like, oh, we guarantee you candidates it'll check every box, and I'm like, why is nobody asking what that box is defined as, what this is, and like what does that even mean, right? And so what I love about your work is thinking through all of those kind of promises and AI systems, everything, what's the real value, right? What are we really getting out of this, and what the real systems being developed are that will cover what, that they cover the part that we're not good at so we can focus on what we're really good at. And I think if AI takes over all of the repetitive analytical work in recruiting, there's the human skills become more valuable, right? And so in your viewpoint, what human skills, I know we kind of touched on, but what human skills become the most valuable in recruiting when AI starts to kind of take over some of the analytical side?
Sure. I'm gonna steal this from Rick Rubin, but he has this really cool line about how like the last thing that's ever gonna be automated is taste. And it's this kind of this idea of, and you could take taste and you could call it judgment, I mean, take as far as the like storytelling, like these sorts of things.
Yeah,
Um, I would also argue that like, I think empathy is going to be that's
Yep.
incredibly hard to codify,
100%.
right?
Yeah, and
Um,
curiosity. I always say empathy and curiosity are
sure.
the two biggest schools or two biggest tools that a recruiter can have.
100%. And there's this I'm a huge fan of Ocean, OCEAN. Ocean is like the five kind of different types of personalities. This is nothing new, but this is coming up a
Mhm.
lot lately in like kind of AI fluency, AI literacy. And I'm not gonna, but it's like openness, conscientiousness, empathy, adaptability, and then there's like a neuropathy piece of it. And it's this idea of like, I think that's what's going to define how we hire moving forward. Like I think so like if
100%.
if my job is going to be um if I'm going to be a customer service person,
Yeah.
then I probably got to have a higher level of empathy, right? Because
Yeah.
there's actually a really famous use case out there. I think it was Klarna, Klarna, the people that do like like, hey, buy a Peloton and do 12
Yep.
payments of it.
Yep.
Um, they let go of the majority of their customer service organization. And the CEO got up and he said, we just saved half $60 million, et cetera. And they ended up losing, I don't remember the number, but something like a third or a quarter of their customers. And what it came to find out was the systems that they put in were designed to close tickets quickly. They were not designed for, you know, oh my gosh, I got laid off. I need an extra week to make this payment. And
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
an example where like empathy is so like he actually came out and said, I was wrong, and they hired all the folks back.
Love it.
So I mean, I think you're gonna start to see, and then on the flip side, there are some roles to where like your adaptability is gonna have to be through the roof, right? Like,
100%.
what we do in Prop Mates is all built on getting our arms around folks in the talent space and in the HR space that want to lean in to AI and automation and assistive technology because they know it's here and they know it's coming and they want to be kind of at the forefront of it. But guess what, man? There's a lot of stuff that we built 6 months ago that is like Google's built a better version of it now. So
Yeah.
like you gotta stay super keen on this adaptability piece. And I can make a real strong argument. Like you talk to some neurodivergent, I can tell you about those in my family. You want to talk about being adaptable? You want to talk about being able to like, put yourself in different situations that may not be comfortable, but you still have to thrive in those.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of
Masking,
that.
man. They spent their years masking, right? And they,
100%.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you learn real quickly as somebody who's dyslexic where I can mask and where I don't have to mask, and you know it within 30 seconds.
Sure.
Yeah, I think you hit on something super important there, though, because I see a trend shifting in recruiting, right? I mean, for the longest time, we've been skills based hiring. But, when you break that down, what do we really mean by skills? To me, it's skills just another term for tools, right? Do you know Adobe? Do you know Java? Do you know C Sharp? Blah, blah. And to me, tools with AI are being replaced faster than ever, but critical thinking, cognitive approach, different ways of problem solving, adaptability, empathy, all of these traits are becoming so much more important to hire for. But those are also traits that never show up on a resume, right? So I think those are things that are forcing us to evolve in the recruiting space of how we're screening, how are we looking for candidates, how are we talking to candidates, what type of systems are we building that are no longer just keyword matching tools, but looking at how do people problem solve, adapt, et cetera. And I think that's the wave of where talent hopefully, I hope, is going, because I think that's what is going to make a successful hire moving forward.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of work trials moving forward, to be honest with you. Like
Interesting.
I think, yeah, I think because it used to be, right. Your resume was like a form of content, and we all
Yeah.
know that like
Yeah.
generative AI at this point, like content is basically free, so I can make
Yep.
anybody sound like anything, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the idea of like allow me, give me your problem, pay me for this. I'm not doing free work, but like give me your
Yeah.
problem, and then give me, $500 in 5 days or something to that effect, like something that it's worth my time to do on the side, and then like
Yeah.
I will show you what I can do, and I will also understand how you work. Like I'll be super honest with you guys, like making these YouTube videos and doing all this stuff. Like Joe, my partner and ProMates, like we've been super lucky enough to talk to all the coolest companies in the world, and like we've had some really crazy things offered to us. And there was one that was like so insane that I was like, I have to like explore this. And
Yeah.
I did that. I was like, give me X number of dollars and I'll give me 5 days. And like day 3, I was like, I don't like this. And they were like, I don't like you. And I was like, I'm so glad I didn't quit like a job that I love with people that I adore to go chase this like shiny label. So it worked out for both of us.
I think what's so fascinating about that, Jason, is one thing I think we have failed in the past to look at is environments with recruiting. That's one thing we focus heavily on. And what that solution, what you're proposing there, allows you to do is see how somebody's going to evolve, process, think in your specific environment. Because what a resume does is a resume tells you what somebody's done in a previous environment, but it's a terrible predictor of what they're going to do in your given environment. And that's such an important piece, right? Because skills only matter if you're able to utilize them in an environment that fits the way you think and process and adapt. You could have the best skilled engineer in the world, but if there's somebody who thrives in ambiguity and is like, hey, give me the problem, let me figure out how to solve it. But if they go into an environment where somebody's like, you have to think this way, process this way, do this checklist, etc., all their skill goes out the window. And we haven't talked enough about that. So I think what you're touching on there is such a similar through line and such a really unique solution or thing that could be implemented to see, okay, well, how are they going to evolve and adapt in our environment? How will they think and process? And that's what we try to solve on our end with a lot of the stuff we do utilizing AI too. That I think such a fascinating solution moving forward, because I don't think that piece of recruiting is touched on in our older archaic systems that we've used.
And I'll tell you, I mean, the artifact that I created, like I was incredibly proud of, and was absolutely not what they were looking for.
Yeah.
And so it's like, cool. You know what I mean? Like this is my best work.
Right. Yeah, we all know.
Isn't what you want. Like, let's you know what I mean? Like we just saved ourselves both a lot of headache. Because I mean, you guys know the score too. Like there's cost per hire, then there's cost of attrition. Like
100%.
And I'm not even saying like a bad hire. In that case, I wouldn't have been a bad hire. I wouldn't have like spoiled the bunch, but like it would have stopped their recruiting process, right? I mean, it would have negatively impacted my career trajectory personally. Like there's a lot of long tails that could have happened. So yeah, I mean, I feel like the failure at that point was purely, what is it? You can't have lesson without Nell. Like, I mean, like it was totally, we all learned something about ourselves in that moment.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. Actually, here's a question. How would an employer go about that? Like if I was an employer and I was thinking about hiring a position or hiring somebody and I don't know where to start.
Sure.
How would this trial, how would I even begin that conversation?
So, I mean, a couple places. Some places, literally, that's the way they do it. Like, I think it's, DuckDuckGo, that browser company, like the super secure browser company, like they straight up put it out there as part of their interview process. That like, you interview with 1, 2, 3, third round, it's $500. It's probably going to take you 3 hours. Like, they literally tell you out of the gates. As far as the way that I did it in my personal situation was, I had a mentor, I had a friend who I was like, hey, I'm thinking about, going and working for this place. And, I was like, this is the place. And every other person I said, this is the place, they were like, oh my God, I can't believe. And he was sort of like, cool, let's talk about whether or not you want to work there.
Right.
And he actually was the one that told me, look, dude, like any executive worth their salt can get, $1,500 approved, like for a project. Go pitch them on this. So in that case, it was me bringing it forth as the candidate. But like some places have codified it and they do it as part of the process. If for you guys, in a situation to where you guys are the connectors between the candidates, and the employers, you guys could even proffer it, right? As like, hey, we feel that Devin's probably the guy for this. We won't take a cut of this $1,000 or $800 or whatever it is, but like, have you thought about maybe letting Devin take 2 weeks shot at your problem? Like, or Devin and Jason, like, why not? Like, let them both go, sort of thing.
Yep.
I do believe, because you talk about skills, we're going to get to a point where like, there are already people who are developing agents that will sit on your shoulder and watch everything you do and learn every single thing about your job so that when they need to hire another one of you or like hire 10 more of you, it's just like plugging into the back of the Matrix and learning Kung Fu. Like they will be able to agentically teach those skills. So then it comes back to like, how do we evaluate the human being itself? And 100%. I think that becomes a old school, like back in elementary school, right? Like show not tell sort of situation.
Yeah, no, but dude, I love that because what you're forcing here is people to think about what their current system is and what systems we need to adapt. And some of this is going to be trial by error, right? Some of it's going to be, we'll see what works, we'll see what doesn't work. But I think the one thing that's true is if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got, right? And we're realizing if we keep keeping these same systems as AI is evolving, as the workplace is evolving, we're going to be behind, right? Like this is forcing us to rethink systems and get back to the human and how do we utilize that advantage of the human being while AI can take over other things. But what we know, what I think everybody's starting to realize is our old systems are not going to work in this new future, right? So how do we develop that?
Sure. And at the same time too, man, like we don't fax resumes anymore either, right? So it's
exactly.
Like everybody was so afraid, right, of the AI future, but we lose sight of the fact that like in our professional lifetimes, like we have already done a heck of a lot of evolving. And I think I never thought I'd work at home. But guess what? Like a global pandemic's got me working at, I never went back after, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that us humans have done in the ways of work where we become adaptable, going from fields to industrial revolution. I mean, you can take it back as far as you want. Like we've done this before. This is a sea change, but it's not like something we haven't been able to figure out in the past, I would say.
For sure. And I think everybody, when you take a high level view of it, like change, like we've changed a ton. People want change right away and change, they want instant change, they want instant gratification. I think we see this with a ton of aspects of culture building, career, everything. But when I look at look at inclusion and look at diversity, and like when I look at the grand scheme of things, like, my wife's Black, so like 50 years ago it was illegal for her and I to get married in 13 states. Like, and I look at that, I'm like, 50 years is a blink of an eye when we look at the grand scheme of things, right? Like change is happening, whether we realize it or not, or whether we like it or not. It may not always be as quick as we want, but the evolution is happening and change is happening. We just got to take a step back and take that 50,000 foot view and go, where were we actually 20 years ago? Oh my God, so much has happened in the last 20 years, right? And I think taking that viewpoint sometimes of a reset of going, okay, no, we are making progress towards this. Maybe it just didn't happen overnight.
100%. One of my daughters came to me like last week and they were like something to the effect of like, did you know I couldn't have had a credit card like when you were born or something like that? And I was like, so I mean, things move fast, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember phones.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, man, let's rapid fire a few things. One sentence each on these to close this out because I'm curious to get your take. Give me one recruiting trend right now that you think is overrated.
Huh. Automated sourcing is not going to save the world.
Yes. Amen. Yeah. Love
Totally
that.
agree.
Okay, love that. One trend that's underrated.
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to work trials, like letting people show what they can do versus talk about what they can do.
I love that, dude. That's such a fascinating
Yep.
concept that now I'm gonna leave after this conversation and think about that because that's one I haven't thought about. That's awesome. All right, what's one AI tool that you think every recruiter should experiment with?
I'm gonna take a little bit of a mulligan on it and be like your LLM of choice, like whatever if your company's a Gemini shop or a ChatGPT shop like spend some time with it, and it's not just to get you to make your emails better, like use it as a thought
Yeah.
partner, have it
Yeah.
challenge you.
Yeah.
Love
Play
that.
with it.
Love that.
Yeah,
And
play with
shameless plug on your behalf. Every recruiter should check out PromptMates. So just FYI, shameless
Yeah.
plug on your ad.
I appreciate
Tons,
that.
tons of value there for sure.
I mean, I'm a member and I love it. It's been great.
There you go. There you go.
We're happy
All
to
right.
have you.
One myth about hiring that you'd love to kill.
More interviews automatically lead to better hiring decisions.
So true. That is so true. All right, man. I want to wrap it up. There's this, obviously we talk not pushing back against resumes because obviously I know they're here for a while, but I am a true believer that a resume doesn't really paint the picture of the true human behind it. So what is one thing about you that you would say is essential to who you are, but would not show up on your resume?
That's a great question. I really genuinely like to leave relationships better than I find them. And I don't know if that's because I'm like the old guy in the room a lot of times nowadays, or if it's because I've been super lucky to just have amazing bosses and mentors and like people to look up to and stuff like that. I really, really, really like people being able to trust and rely and depend on me, and hopefully, like I said, are better after a half an hour with me than they were before.
They are. I could attest to that, man. Your insights are awesome. Well, thanks for doing this, dude. We love the conversation. It was great. I think you've got a lot of people. We'll pull nuggets out of this, but I think you're going to have a lot of things spinning people's wheels, thinking about how we can redo systems, man. So thank you for taking some time with us, man. Awesome conversation, and hopefully we get to do it again.
Yeah,
This is great.
good work, dude. You guys are doing good stuff, man. I'm rooting for you.
Appreciate it, man. All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks everyone.